Tons of weapon buffs, ragdolling has finally improved, some stratagem buffs, and even some enemy nerfs such as Striders and Overseers, which are now easier to kill. And best of all, 2 new enemy types, one for automatons and one for Illuminate. In today's video, we're going to talk about all of that and much more. Today, Helldivers just dropped a pretty big update, not necessarily in quantity, but it changed so many things that play a massive role in the game, such as ragdolls and how fire works, that I honestly think it makes this a very big update. I've gone ahead and tested all the changes in today's update, and we'll be going down the patch notes and we'll address change by change. So let's not waste any time and let's go straight into it. Now, before we get into what was changed in today's update specifically, let's talk about the 2 new enemy units added today. First is the new big talk in town, the new War Striders on the automaton front. These are like the Hulk equivalent of Striders, and they are awesome. They have 2 weapons, one on each hand, and they shoot grenades and a massive grenade barrage as well from time to time. These big beefy guys have tons of health, and their entire body seems to be covered in an armor value of 4 from head to toe. I didn't quite find anywhere in their body that seemed to have under that armor value. What that means is you'll start dealing damage to them starting from weapons such as laser cannon, anti-material rifle, heavy machine gun, and so on. Anything like a stalwart or a regular machine gun is not gonna cut it. Like every other unit in Helldivers 2, they also have weak spots, and they're fairly similar to the regular Striders in this case. Their weak spots from my experiments was just focusing on their legs. I thoroughly tested the railgun against them, shooting at different parts of their body, from the leg to the main hole to even the eyeball looking thing. But what most consistently felt the best way to deal with them was just by shooting their legs with either 4 to 5 pop shots or 2 fully charged shots and 1 extra pop shot. Alternatively, of course, you can just one-shot them with either an ultimatum or a thermite to no one's surprise. Now, these guys come in massive numbers. They play a pretty big role in their army, and I think the automatons just became even more so heavily armored, which means you should definitely always take that into account when going up against the automatons. You should always take multiple anti-tank options with you. You can also shoot their weapons and cripple them, but personally, I found just getting rid of them by focusing one of the legs to be the way to go. Over at the Illuminate side, we also have these new orb towers here. I wouldn't really consider it a new unit. I think I called it a new unit earlier on, but it's more like their Tesla towers that they have scattered around defending their encampments. They're kind of just stationary there, just defending the encampment and making sure you don't destroy their ships. They're pretty cool, and they have a very weak version of the Harvester's Beam, but overall I did find them to be a lot easier to deal with than the Tesla tower. But either way, their defenses continue to grow, boys. Now, moving on to what was actually changed with today's update. First off, they've officially reduced the time it takes for your Helldiver to regain control after ragdolling from 0.8 seconds to 0.5 seconds. This is noticeable, especially on the bot front, as ragdolling is a lot more frequent. And the best situation I found to put this ragdolling timing to the test was purposely getting shoved by a speared overseer. The speared overseer's attack you sends you to the ground, and he strikes you again before you can even manage to get up. With the new ragdoll changes, I sadly didn't feel that much of a change. It still feels like death is guaranteed unless the overseer kind of messes up his attack timing. But overall, it did feel like I could escape more than previously, but really just such a tiny change, and the overseer just continues to dominate you. I really think ragdolling either still needs to be a little bit faster, or these guys' melee attack needs a decrease in attack speed. Now, moving on to the next change, they've increased the chest injury bleed damage from 1 to 10. Chest injuries now cause actual noticeable damage, as the previous value of 1 was so low it appeared to have no effect. Honestly, to me, this kind of makes sense. We have quite a few armor sets that cancel out chest bleeding altogether, but previously chest bleeding was so irrelevant that these armor sets were deemed nearly useless. Now though, chest bleeding applies a severe damage over time on you, and if you're out of stims, you will die extremely quickly. And you honestly need to be very reactive when chest bleeding comes up. You need to pop that as soon as possible, which as a result increases the value of those previously underused armor sets as well. Overall, I don't mind this change at all. I actually think it's for the best. Now on to the CQC one true flag. We can now plant the flag directly onto enemies, and yeah, that is exactly what it sounds like. You can literally plant plant the flag on top of your enemies and claim them for yourself. It doesn't seem like it quite deals a lot of damage, so don't expect anything on that front, but it is quite funny. Now moving on to a couple of primary weapons. First, the new stunning assault rifle, the AR-32 Pacifier, has had its stuns doubled in duration. On top of that, we've also got an increased starting magazine from 5 to 6, and a maximum amount of magazine also increased by 1. And finally, a slight increase in stun value applied to enemies, which means it will stun enemies a little bit quicker than before. And I'll say it is definitely noticeable. If you're a fan of using stun heavy builds, this is a fantastic change. I could hold off waves of enemies from pushing me pretty comfortably. I mean, I personally still won't be implementing this into my rotation of loadouts, but it is definitely improved. Moving on to the Pummeler SMG, which is the stunning SMG, we've also seen a double in its stun duration as well as an increase in its stun value, which, much like the Pacifier, it's gonna be a rather niche weapon still, but I do think this is a pretty decent buff, especially against the automatons, as we can pair the Pummeler SMG up with a ballistic shield, and its stuns kind of keep the Devastators locked in place, enabling you to secure a headshot far more easily, which honestly I quite enjoy it against automatons right now, as it's easier to secure weak spot hits due to both its stuns and how low the recoil feels on the weapon as well. It does feel like a pretty safe weapon to use, generally speaking. Moving on to the Blitzer, which is an amazing weapon already. Any extra buffs to it is a huge W. Essentially, it now stuns enemies a little bit faster. But in practice, I'll be honest, I literally didn't notice any difference whatsoever to stunning. I don't think I saw me stunning a single bug. I just killed bugs far quicker than I stunned them anyways. If the stun for some reason was really strong, it would be really good against the Predator strain, but I didn't notice anything. What I will say though, take this with a massive grain of salt, but for some reason the Blitzer felt a lot stronger when I tested it here. I don't know if I'm tripping or what, but yeah, I just feel like I should point this out because it felt weirdly powerful. But yeah, anyways, moving on. Both the Constitution as well as the Amendment received a 25% stagger strength increase to its bayonets. Not a big change whatsoever, but I guess it helps out a little bit. As for the secondaries, the new lock-on pistol, the P92 Warrant, can lock onto large-sized enemies, which personally, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, yeah, it's good that it locks onto Alpha Commanders, but now there's more stuff for the Warrant to accidentally lock onto when I'm trying to lock onto a specific enemy. But really, I think the lock-on mechanics in general just need to be changed a bit. I think we should be offered a key binding, which we can press to tell the lock-on to change targets to help a little bit with locking onto unnecessary enemies. But I digress. Moving on, the new sticky stun grenade, the Urchin, now received a huge stagger strength buff from 0 to 50, and it now staggers and stuns large-sized enemies. And you can even throw an Urchin on a Bile Titan, and it will stagger it to the point where it struggles spitting at you. The stagger is massive. It doesn't really stagger or stun tanks though on the automaton side for some reason, so its use still seems rather limited. But yeah, once again, if you enjoyed the stunning mechanic in general in this game, your loadout just got a huge buff. Moving on to the incendiary grenades, both the incendiary grenade as well as the incendiary impact grenade both received a small buff. The amount of fuel has been increased in the grenade, resulting in longer lasting fire duration. Previously, the flames would last for about 10 seconds or so after lighting the floor on fire, and that seems to have been pushed to about 15 or so seconds from my brief experiments, easily making it a much better grenade for choke points and such. But yeah, it seems like they're trying to match the gas grenades a little bit here. Now moving on to a few stratagems. First, we got a pretty huge buff to the Flame Sentry. It now has a fire damage resistance of 95%, which this is to prevent it from killing itself as it previously often would, as enemies would get a little bit too close to it, causing it to light itself up on fire. Now with this flame resistance, you can actually pretty comfortably clear mobs off of it with flamethrowers and incendiary grenades, making it an incredibly powerful tool to bait aggro onto it as you wipe out swarms. I absolutely loved using this combination today. The cooldown was also reduced to 100 seconds, bringing it down to only 85.5 seconds after ship module upgrades, making it the second shortest sentry cooldown in the entire game, only losing to the machine gun sentry, which has around a 9-second shorter cooldown. But I'd say this is a massive buff, especially when utilized correctly, as the Flame Sentry has the potential to kill pretty much every enemy type in the game, whereas the machine gun doesn't quite do that. I'll definitely be testing out this Flame Sentry more and more these next few days. Moving on, the De-Escalator stuns were also buffed. It now applies stuns a little bit quicker, and in practice, I'll admit I once again didn't notice much of a change. It's definitely a very subtle change, but I guess a buff nonetheless. As for boosters, the devs are trying to help out the very poorly regarded pod boosters. Both these stun pods as well as the firebomb hell pod boosters got the following changes. It now affects the hell pod's default explosion as well, and the stagger strength decreased from 80 to 15 to prevent ragdolling players. And lastly, demolition strength was decreased from 40 to 20. So I guess that's that. I don't know how much that's really gonna help these boosters, but I guess that's a step in the right direction. Moving on to the fire damage change, it's now easier to put large to massive sized enemies on fire, which as a result will make it so that fire is a bit deadlier when handling bigger enemies, and I found myself having somewhat of an easy time taking down Bile Titans with flamethrowers today. It was already really strong, so any little help goes a long way. Now move on to a couple of enemy changes. First off, for Terminus, the warriors got a small change. The damage needed to get warriors increased from 500 to 750 damage, which by the way, Gibbon means this is how much damage is needed to explode the body without leaving a corpse behind. Not exactly sure if that's tackling any sort of issue that I'm unaware of or what the point of this change is, but personally, I don't think you'll really be feeling any changes. I mean, at least I know I didn't, but yeah, let me know in the comment section below if you felt any changes to the warriors at all. On automatons, the Scout Strider's leg armor decreased from 3 to 2, and its durable resistance has been increased as well. Now this is a really big change for light armor penetration weapons, as you can kind of just bring them now and they're a little bit more forgiving on the automaton side. But I guess with the new addition of the War Striders, that kind of counters this change a little bit, so I don't know how useful it'll really be to just use light armor penetration weapons. Now moving on to the Illuminate, we've got a slight Overseer nerf as well. The unarmored torso health zone armor decreased from 2 to 1. Now when I quickly first read this, I immediately got excited because I thought their chest overall had their armor value decreased to only 1, but let me clarify this if you're overexcited like I was there for a couple of seconds. Their actual chest, like the actual flesh underneath their body plate, is what got its armor value reduced, not the plate on top. So you still need to break the plate on its chest before you reach their actual chest, which, don't get me wrong, it definitely made it so that they do die quicker, but I should definitely clarify these patch notes a little bit because I think some people misunderstood that as well. Now as far as this update goes, these are all the changes applied to Helldivers 2. As per usual, the update also came with several fixes to the game, and as I read through all the fixes, I didn't necessarily find anything that I've even come across, so I'll just put the fixes here on the screen. They did fix, however, the issue that we had with status effect, where grouped players would have status effects multiply when they were queued in group as opposed to someone that's playing solo. I personally can't really speak on it very much because, as you guys know, I do most of my playing on solo, so I can't really say how much of a difference this is going to be to group play. I'm gonna actually kind of leave that up to you guys. This is why I'm not bringing it up in this video. But yeah, status effects were also fixed. They no longer multiply incorrectly in multiplayer, which should affect stun effects and a couple of other things. But do let me know in the comment section below if you found any noticeable changes in Helldivers 2 on that front. All in all though, a massive W of an update, and I can't wait for the Warbond update on Thursday. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, man, and I'll be catching you legends on the next one. Peace.